I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the most haunted city on earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Susie.
And this is our 50th episode.
50! Yay! No wonder my back hurts.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Oh, my knees.
Oh, yes. Maybe one day we'll upgrade a little bit.
Now, why aren't we doing this on a couch or, in a rocking chair somewhere?
We're getting there.
Because your discomfort makes it more entertaining.
We're in a dark warehouse in the middle of morning.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, I will tell you right now, I have plans to build this set out. I've been doing design work, just, on my chill time, my coffee time, or my scotch time. I'm like, this could go here, this could go here, I say for like a full set.
Sometime in the near future, we should do like a midnight podcast.
Ooh.
Like literally just like come in here, maybe live stream it on something, but
that's a great idea.
Do a straight up midnight podcast in this creepy warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually an old train station for the people that didn't hear that last time. All right, so real fast, I would like to thank all of our new patrons. I would like to thank Miranda Wareham, Andrew Maudsley, Stephanie Bauer, Laura Rhodes, Carla Bunch, the original Paramutant.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There's multiple Paramutants.
Yeah, and he's the original. Alexandra Machado, Lorena Legoretta, and Ashley Werner. And we have a very, very special thanks to Ashley Werner's son, Jameson.
Hey, Jameson.
Hello.
Jameson is one of our youngest viewers, and I actually think that we are going to dedicate this 50th episode, the last episode of season 1, to Jameson.
Yes.
Because he represents the future of the paranormal.
Yes, the future of the spooky people.
Yes. Keep going, Jameson. We really appreciate you listening, man. All right. And so, 50th episode, last season 1. How does it feel?
Feels pretty good. It went by very quickly.
Yeah, it feels like we just started, a few months ago.
We really did.
Quite literally.
We've dropped 3 episodes a week. I think we started with 2 episodes a week.
Yep.
And I'm extremely proud of everything that's been going down because it's building really, really fast. We have some really incredible Parajunkies, and we have really incredible fans who aren't Parajunkies yet. Yeah. So. Yeah, we've done some really wicked mobile podcasts. We've done some ghost hunts. I mean, we've really done a lot in the last couple months, and I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's been really fun. Another point. Another reason to become a Parajunkie is because we have tons of exclusive content from, if you think, 50 public episodes, but imagine all the exclusive content that we've uploaded, over the weeks, and it's not like some of them are episodes, but some of them are some, weird stuff. Like we just dropped episode 1 of the series, and
And people are really liking it.
Yeah,
that was on the Sorrel Weed House.
Absolutely. It's a deep dive in the Sorrel Weed House, which is one of Savannah's most haunted houses. We got exclusive access to that place. We actually filmed the podcast in the basement. And what that is it's kind of a new media. It's like a TV show, so you can watch it, on the unlisted YouTube link. Or the private YouTube link, and you can also listen to it in your car. You don't have to watch it. That's how we made it, is that it's constant podcast. However, it does have visuals associated to it. So that's really, interesting.
Fun stuff.
But yeah, today we are gonna go ahead and end season 1 with Q&A.
Woohoo!
Oh yeah, Q&As are some of our most loved videos from season 1. Season 2 is going to definitely have Q&As in it, but we're also going to be doing some different stuff. We were just talking about doing some React videos. We know that our fans might really like React videos. So absolutely. All right. So if we are ready, let's go ahead and start with question 1. Ginger Millennial. Nice. Parajunkie.
We've heard from her before.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Ginger Millennial, for sure. She's asked a couple questions. What are your thoughts about contacting spirit guides or deities through a spirit box or other paranormal type tools? Hashtag Parajunkie and love it. Thanks,
I like
Ginger
that.
Millennial.
That's
You're the bomb.
sweet. So here's there's a weird gray area when it comes to spirit guides and deities being on a same level as like your standard ghost. So typically, the spirits that you're getting through spirit boxes and stuff, they're kind of like around you in the way that they're attached to the property you're investigating or an object that that's in the area that you're investigating. Whereas spirit guides and deities are on this different plane, if you will. That's why it's a little bit harder to contact them. It takes a bit more nuance to actually like decipher your connection with them, because a lot of times their communication to you is through signs, and some people eventually form a relationship with those sort of things where they can hear the voice of that particular spirit guide or deity, and they know that it's associated with them. So I've never heard anybody actually trying to contact them through a spirit box, but just from what I am already knowledgeable of when it comes to those spirits, I don't see how they would necessarily come through in that medium.
Right, because the spirit box is generally using the electromagnetic field around the area, utilizing broadcast sounds and things like that. So that type of manipulation is more reserved for beings that are in this realm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And when you're talking about the deities and spirit guides, they are generally... we just had a long deep dive into astral projection. So the concept of there being this other plane of consciousness and this other plane of existence, it doesn't necessarily interfere with ours. It doesn't necessarily connect with ours. We usually have to go through some form of meditative process or ritual that brings about contact with those types of entities, because they are operating and just doing their thing. Their responsibility isn't really known to us. So when we communicate with them or when they communicate with us, it is very direct line. It is not a pattern of energy that could be picked up by a wide broadband thing like a spirit box. So I've never really heard of anybody utilizing the spirit box to try and contact those types of entities. And to speak to the same thing, sometimes we'll talk about demons and dark things. That too exists in different layers. When you're dealing with something that is on the ground level, so to speak, you're going to find that your equipment responds to them because they are present, whereas there are influences and forces and things that are beyond our reckoning. None of our equipment's going to find it. None of our even our sensations aren't going to know that they're there. You can almost describe it like all different dimensions. They are in a different dimension, and they are operating on whatever they're doing.
Exactly.
And so for us, and I want to say that human history has long been about finding ways to communicate or ascend spiritually so that we can communicate or be in some way knowledgeable in those beings, versus spirits that are functionally here with us and around us.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I say that a lot of times their biggest forms of communication are through signs. Spirit guides heavily utilize angel numbers usually, and sending you messages through certain things that are going to catch your attention. And it's a very specific relationship that they have with you. In the same breath, with deities, basically, like, they have certain symbols and attributes to them. So, like, Hecate might send you a black dog or things like that. Or you might get crows, or you might get dreams of those deities that are coming through, or things like that. So that's usually the way they're going to go about it. And if you're communing, if you will, with it, typically it is, especially with deities, they usually want their own altar. They want, a worshiping kind of relationship. And so oftentimes when they're communicating with you, it's going to be through tarot. It's going to be through, more divination style communication. So
cool. Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Let's see. Next question is from BurkDirk _. And BurkDirk asks, is this a type of energy or psychic force? Multiple people choosing, saying, thinking the same thing in the same location? Example, a room at different times. Oh,
absolutely.
It's a deep question.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and philosophically speaking, that's, the cosmic consciousness, the concept that we are all connected. There's this intricate, incredible web of consciousness that we can all dip into, which a lot of people think is the ability to see the past and to communicate with the dead and to do these other things, is that some people are more adept at dipping into this well. And some people believe that you can be in a place, that has qualities to it, large deposits of lime or quartz or anything in the minerals in the ground or the electric wires above your head, can actually make people more susceptible to a commonality of thought and a commonality of idea. So they can actually go to the well and all be dipping at the same time, and all of a sudden everyone's in sync. And that is kind of a fantastic, notion, is that, and you'll see this a lot with people who hang out together a lot, is that their thinking becomes synchronized, and their ability to communicate with each other gets a shorthand, just a glance or just a word, and all of a sudden they know exactly what the other person's saying or what they're intending or what's happening. So yes, I guess the short answer is I do believe that is a psychic phenomenon, that
Gotcha.
we are able to sync up our intuitions and our mentalities.
And I mean, I think we're naturally made to kind of be connected in that way, because if you even look at people who have menstrual cycles, sometimes when you spend too much time around each other, it syncs up, and like things like that. So it shows that like your bodies can somehow kind of connect in that way, or they're actively searching to connect and be in sync with one another. But that is not to say that people don't manipulate things, because I don't want people to go at us, especially, the TikTokers, to say like that everything is always psychic coincidence or things like that. Because there are plenty of studies shown that you can do subliminal messaging, you can do, different pulsations, like frequencies and things like that, and it can create this what's the word I'm looking for? This outcome that you're looking for. And so a lot of times that can be manipulated. So I would say if somebody's like actively, like saying like, oh, I can get everybody in a room to think the same thing, they can do like certain images or something to give the correct answer of what they want out of a situation. Absolutely. It's kind of like how in improv, Chris, I know you know this, but like it's called begging the question.
Sure.
So basically you ask specific questions to get the desired answer that you want in a scene. That's how a lot of improvers, maneuver around getting really obnoxious or obscure answers to what they're asking for a scene. And so you can manipulate things in a way So just be wary of it. But I definitely do agree that I think it can be a psychic phenomenon, especially if it does just happen by happenstance.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So that's how that's how the fake psychics do it.
Oh,
Like, it's all
absolutely.
That's the
improvisation.
manipulation
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, absolutely. They are leading questions and they're utilizing an empty space and allowing people to fill in the blanks.
Okay.
You know, so and you can read people too, and in the cases of people tuning into the same thing, the first person to recognize what everyone's tuning into has an opportunity to take gross advantage of it.
Sure.
And become kind of a leader mentality.
Okay. Cool. All right. On to the next question. Oh, we got a follow-up to the Burger King question from the last
Great.
Q&A.
We were really concerned.
We want to know more.
All right. Hi. This is HM Deal. Hi. I am the person who wrote you guys about the kid passing out when I managed a Burger King. Figured I'd give you a closer and not expectation of talking about it anymore on your podcast, LOL. She was a 16-year-old teenager. It was caused by a heart problem they didn't know about. She lived. Woo!
Oh, good.
Excellent. Good.
She lived. When it happened, her head was on my leg in the recovery position. Should we stop here and kind of like for the people who did not listen to the last podcast, just quickly go over what the first question was?
Sure.
Okay. Like who wants to tell it? Who remembers it well
Yeah.
enough?
So basically what happened was this person sent in a Q&A saying that when they were managing the Burger King, this girl passed out from a heart problem. And while she was laying in that recovery position, a white kind of like mist of sorts came out of her, like saw this like white fog come out of her mouth or
Yeah, like a
whatever,
wisp.
wisp, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that was basically it. And they were asking if that's something paranormal or like what could that have been. And so we had a lot of questions on that.
Yeah.
So definitely
Yeah, we
listen
didn't
to
know
the
if she
last
lived
Q&A.
or not. We didn't know, but she lived. When it happened, her head was lying on my leg in the recovery position. I looked around to everyone to see if anyone else saw it, and of course they didn't. Always happens like that.
Well, yeah.
Furthermore, Chris said I might have a gift, and a lot of people never seen people die. I work in corrections and unfortunately have an on average large list of seeing people die or dead. I haven't seen it since. However, I can tell when someone is going to try to commit suicide in the jail. I just don't know who. I can just feel when a traumatic event will happen, if that makes sense. Ooh.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting and
That's
intriguing.
really- for
Especially
sure.
that given that you're talking about a very specific type of action that is that has such premeditation, which means that the emotions are there and they are, if you are sensitive at all, something that you could pick up on. So that's a really interesting. I'd love to hear more about that. I'd love to hear more about the sensation of knowing that someone is going to commit suicide and knowing that feeling, because that in my book is premonition. That is the ability to see an event coming, but because it's a premeditated event, the sensation, that there's a feeling in the air or
Absolutely.
a sensation that this action is going to be taken, which is, again, that's a gift. That is a type of perception. And when we even talk about like extrasensory perception, it really is probably more correctly, you have the ability to recognize and perceive not above, the norm, but something that other people just don't. That is a rare gift. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you'd say this guy's like sensitive
Yes.
to it.
So something I've talked about a lot on the show is the different Claire abilities, the different types of psychic abilities. To me, it sounds like you have a very rare type of empath kind of abilities, because empaths traditionally are supposed to be those who can feel the feelings and sensations of others around them. So what leads me to think that is because the fact that you can feel that someone's going to commit suicide, but you can't pinpoint who it is. And now that is not to say that it couldn't just be because you're working in a jail, because that's a lot of emotions going on, and it can be hard for people who have that type of ability to decipher a lot of times. But it feels like what makes it so rare is that you have that ability as well. And it could be because you've seen such an absurd amount of death in your life.
I think it is. I think he's got the Simon Birch syndrome, and just from a religious standpoint, just from the religious side of the table over here, I believe that possibly God gave that to him for a very specific purpose.
Sure.
Like how, the idea behind Simon Birch, if you haven't seen Simon Birch, watch it and cry.
It will make you cry.
You will cry. But yeah, I mean, the small kid or small person and able to fit into those bus windows and all of that to save the kids. When the bus was in the lake, I don't know if you haven't seen Simon Birch. I guess I'm trying
Spoilers.
not to. Yeah, right. I'm trying not to spoil it so much because there's way more that happens than just the bus in the lake and the kids. Right. But yeah, that's what I think of when you hear about someone with a rare ability like that. There's got to be a reason why that person has it, and it's to make a big effect on either one person's life or multiple people's lives.
Well, and that also kind of raises the question of the 16-year-old girl wondering if she had suicidal ideations or if she was going through some distress in her life that you were picking up on, or, because when we tie those two things together, how close to death was she?
Yeah.
And what manifested as something visual for you may now be a sensation and a feeling, or something that you haven't been able to observe with your eyes before, but now, being able to iterate that you have these sensations and this knowledge of, suicidal tendency or suicidal action, that does, it brings about interesting questions about those two events, because while they may seem unrelated, I find that most things are in fact very related.
Oh, I find it super related, because of the fact that she was having a medical episode. That is always going to put somebody a little bit closer to death than they were before they had the medical episode. And so, I think it's super interesting, and don't feel crazy, that other people couldn't see it, because those other people don't have that same ability, because a lot of people immediately lean to the side of like, well, nobody else saw it, so I probably was just seeing something. But it sounds like you have a very different type of ability, and maybe as you lean into it, it'll become a bit more controlled or nuanced, if you will.
Right, it is the kind of ability that you can grow, that you can hone.
Exactly. Like you can eventually, especially with empaths have to eventually lean into it, or they're gonna go crazy, because it's hard to not know how to shut out other people's emotions, and it affects you in that way.
Sure. All right. So we have a story that was sent in via Instagram by Jenna_Thomas_Breen. And Jenna said, now, have we read this yet? I haven't read this. Have you?
I haven't read it.
All right. No one's read it at the table, so this is going to be new. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Hi. I'm not sure if you will read this or not. We are now. I'm not sure if you will read this or not, but I have a question. So it's a story question. My family and I were in Savannah just this weekend. We took a carriage ghost tour, and during our tour, we saw a man dressed in a soldier uniform holding a cane leaning against a tree in the shadows. We don't remember which street we were on, and our tour guide never mentioned or pointed him out. We assumed it was someone dressed up for another tour and didn't mention it to our guide or ask as she was in the middle of a story about another haunting. We had something fairly similar to this, didn't we?
We were just talking about the ghost soldier up on.
But we've had a story sent in that was like, I was on a tour and I saw a soldier. We've done a lot of stuff, but I do kind of remember that.
I wouldn't be surprised if we had, because they're very common.
Yeah.
So
Okay, but now we going back to the question. But now we can't help but be curious. The man was young, looked early 20s ish, dressed in a soldier's uniform and holding a cane. He was standing on the side of a tree, and as we passed, he quietly moved to the other side as if to go unnoticed. He was very stoic, and nothing remarkable transpired as we passed. We've been looking online today to try to find out if it was someone dressed up or if we actually saw something paranormal. Any info? After Googling pics of clothing from that era, my husband and I both think it wasn't a soldier uniform, but maybe a riding coat and a riding crop instead of a cane. And cane is spelled C-A-I-N. We are not certain, so it could honestly have been either. Just looked more like a riding coat when we were trying to determine what he was wearing. Thanks for responding.
So, it's tricky when you're in Savannah. I love that you said nothing notable happened, because it really emphasizes the point I've tried to make to people of ghosts aren't always doing something remarkable when you have a paranormal experience. Sometimes you just simply see a ghost, and it's hard to decipher because of the fact that when you see somebody in a period outfit, it is not out of the possibility that it was a tour guide, because there are plenty of tour guides in Savannah that love to wear costumes and things like that. But, it sounds like usually you get a feeling when something is paranormal. Like you can tell there's a difference between that being a human. Like it wouldn't have caught your attention and stuck with you in that way if it was a normal person, if that makes sense.
But would multiple people? So Jenna said we saw the soldier.
Sure,
Would
that's
multiple people have seen it?
Absolutely.
If it was a ghost.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities.
It's not impossible, sure. Lots of people.
But it's less likely, no?
It is less likely. And again, in Savannah, I can think of at least 4 tour companies that, dress in period costumes. So that does make it more difficult to verify. And again, the idea of trying to stay out of the view of another tour kind of makes sense for a tour guide, or more in the point is there are a couple of ambush characters, meaning characters that kind of jump onto the trolleys and do a little bit.
Yep.
And those actors try to stay, out of sight as much as possible. But we can't rule it out either.
Did it say what square this happened?
No.
Okay.
She said she didn't know the street.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, it does. It's within the realm of possibility that you saw a spirit, because this is a lingering town. Mm-hmm. The spirits here just enjoy being here. They're just I'm going to hang out here a century or two, and then I'll move on. So it's very easy to walk right by a ghost, never thinking that it was out of place.
Absolutely.
And that is the great mystery of Savannah is how many ghosts have you seen? How many things have you passed by and not even noticed? How many animals, just wandering around are really just spirits?
Yeah.
That is that's one for the books. Is you may have seen a ghost, and I would strongly endorse leaning towards the fact that you may have seen a ghost.
Yeah. Well, and especially because something a lot of people don't talk about either is that people died in the squares as well. It didn't mean they were buried there, but people died in carriage accidents all the time. People were shot. People were... Exactly. It's not out of any realm of possibility. Because I know like with the Sorrel Weed House, they get a lot of paranormal activity because there were multiple carriage accidents outside of that house. And so people will hear, those particular incidents happen, or they'll see spirits of it in Madison Square. But, and also the period outfit doesn't indicate necessarily a specific person as well, which makes it a little bit trickier.
That makes it difficult. It does.
Yeah, but I lean on the side of you probably saw a ghost, because usually you can feel it in your gut. Like, that's what a lot of people tend to disregard, is they're like, oh, we probably just, mistook that person for a ghost. But usually if it's sticking with you that much, where you're doing like the research and stuff, that leans for me a little bit on the paranormal side.
Sure.
All right. Let's see. Taylor Ann Luke. She asks, me again. You're my favorite people, obviously. Oh, thanks, Taylor and Luke. We appreciate it. What's the most disabling feeling you've gotten during an investigation?
Oh, interesting.
Ooh. So it was not an investigation. It was I was conducting a ghost tour and I passed out.
Oh, wow.
And
that's disabling.
Well, yeah. Well, when I came to, my guests were trying to drag me out of the basement. And I came to, and I was like, what's happening? And they're like, oh my God. And they recounted the story to me, and it was very alarming, because it wasn't a swoon. It was I'm talking and then I'm being pulled.
Oh boy.
And then when I sat down, and it was only two, I only had two guests. And when I sat down with them, and they were like on the phone to 911 and stuff, and I was like, cancel it. We sat down, we talked about it. The more we talked about it, the more I came to a name. Moses was the name. Moses, a slave who had died, and that was and not just died. He had died in front of his child and his wife, and that was in my head, like right after that event. And that was in the basement of Moon River Brewery.
Of course it was.
Of course it was.
Oh, God.
That dang basement.
Yep.
Well, that's not the first story I've ever heard with that basement where people had passed out or like...
Oh, blacked out, I should probably say, is a more
Not because they had too much beer, though?
Well, okay, so...
Plenty of spirits.
So think about it, though. Like, they don't really let normal people down in that basement unless it's for an event or like like they do the investigations and stuff, but it's usually you're down there for a reason. You're not just a random bar goer trickling down into the basement. It's always, whenever I've heard people passing out down there, they were on a tour or they were working at Moon River and they just collapsed out of nowhere, things like that. I would say probably my most disabling feeling was in the Andrew Lowe house. And I'll tell you, it was mostly because it was so consistent. And sometimes it was worse than others. That house, for some reason, just had a major effect on me. But upstairs, if you're standing next to the, trying to remember what her name was, but the bedroom that's literally, you go up the stairs, it's the first bedroom on the right. That room, I couldn't stand next to it because I just literally felt like I was suffocating. And at first I was like, okay, well, maybe it's because I, had to wear a mask because I was working during COVID and things like that. But no matter like if I didn't have the mask on, or I would like, take a couple breaths, like pull my mask away, turn around from the guests and like take some breaths, I just felt like I was being suffocated every single time. And sometimes it was worse than others, but it never made sense why it was that room. Because, the room where Julia Gordon-Lowe died, I was like, okay, that could make sense if it was her, because she died in a way that would, feel suffocating. But it was never near her room. It was always only this room. And so
you always mention to me when you have these feelings and stuff that you feel like it's suffocating.
Yeah, that is I do have a problem with that with spirits. I feel a lot of their energy in my chest. And I've come to realize that, especially because, the more I've gone through Colonial Park Cemetery, because Colonial Park Cemetery does it as well to me.
So when you and I had to go get PJ's tie with the dogs, you're like,
not always, but sometimes it is. It's like, actually when we did I did a live stream when we first started, and I was doing a couple live streams on TikTok. I had a moment like that while I was on camera. I was like, hold on, y'all. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't have COVID, I promise. Like, my lungs work very normally. It was so strange because it just comes on you. Like it goes upon you where you're just like, like it feels like something's just sucking that breath out of your lungs. Very weird. That's probably my most disabling feelings that I get when I investigate, because just sometimes it happens, and depending on the spirits.
And Chris, where did you say you were when you were doing that?
Moon River.
It was Moon River. That's
Yeah.
where it was. That's where it was. Okay, so it was Moon River, and that's why I was asking. I just wanted to confirm. Basically, Moon River is right across from River Street.
Yes.
Like Bay Street cuts
Bay
down
Street,
the middle, and then you have Factors Walk in River Street. And I remember you mentioning in an earlier episode that the tunnels come through. Do you think like that basement was like one of the tunnels?
Absolutely.
Or,
and I want to say, if you go into the basement and right when you get into down the stairs and look straight across, you can actually see the bricked over entrance into the tunnel system of Savannah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And because like just down that same block, there's another establishment that has a basement bar, and if you go down into that basement bar, they have actually painted the tunnel so that you could see what it looked like going into the tunnel.
Gotcha. Yeah. And what's the story with Moon River Brew? Like what's the story with that basement other than it being
goodness,
that?
We could spend an entire episode on
It's
Moon
true.
River.
Maybe
Moon
we
River,
should.
We absolutely should, but it was built originally as a hotel, the Savannah Hotel in 1820.
Okay.
It ran for 40 plus years. Pre-Civil War, it's had an insane history.
Okay.
It is. Most people will remark that the ghost of the building is in fact a man who was shot to death, Stark, by Dr. Minus, which just sounds like a superhero and supervillain.
Right? I've always thought that too.
Stark and Minus?
Stark and Dr. Minus.
Which
I'm going to subtract you, Stark. Yeah. But the interesting thing is his story, and a lot of people who encountered that specific spirit, he was a gambler, kind of a rogue, but people have very pronounced experiences, especially as you get to the upper levels. If you go to the upper levels of that building, it is completely unfinished.
Oh wow!
And so I
remember seeing it.
Yeah, it just looks super raw, and people have tried. Many people have gone in to do renovations there, and they just don't like it. They don't like doing it, and so those upper floors are very, very scary. And we will in the future do a breakdown of Moon River, because Moon River, I think, is possibly one of the more celebrated haunted locations. I think it is visited by every single ghost hunting show out there.
Absolutely.
And generally, they have pretty good evidence coming out of those shows. So if you look up Moon River Brewing Company in Savannah, Georgia, you look at the Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, look at the Ghost Brothers. I was actually on an episode of Ghost Brothers talking about it. So, yeah, there's...
Let's do an episode on it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can shoot that one next week, because we already have episode 1 of season 2 planned, which we're going to shoot today. But maybe we can save that one for Monday and do that one as episode 2, season 2.
Absolutely.
I think that'd be really cool, because I know that I was warned, and I'll mention this in the next episode too, but in more detail. But I was warned by somebody when I was filming down there for my thesis. I was warned by someone that I should really rethink it. Mm-hmm. Because it's, they don't like it down there. They don't like when people film down there. No. So I was like, cool. Okay. Well,
Well, and
Still going to do it.
But it's true, though, because JT, we were...
We'll talk,
okay, well,
we'll save it for episode 2. But
we had some weird experiences
We did. It
down
definitely,
there.
I should have heeded it. I should have heeded the warning. I could have found another place that was similar because, plenty of brick walls in Savannah.
Right.
All right. So, let's see. Tara Chronic asks, is connection with the spirit a form of attachment?
So I think I remember this question being in reference to the video we posted on TikTok about like a ghost touching you.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was what she meant by connection in that way. So basically, a ghost touching you, I don't see that as a form of attachment per se. Because a lot of times it just happens when they're trying to get your attention, like, especially with children ghosts, they love doing it. They love like grabbing you or touching you or pulling on your pant leg or whatever. Actually, interestingly enough, on kid ghost touching people, Nicole Kingbird, who's one of our Parajunkies, when she came to Savannah, we met up with her, and she, we asked her, like, what are you planning to go, like, do? And she was like, she told us she was taking one of the tours that I used to work for who goes into the Davenport house. And I was like, great. The kid ghosts are so fun, but they will touch you. They definitely do. And she was like, oh boy, like, I'm sure they'll probably sense that I'm a mom. She has like 4 kids. And so she was like, oh, I'm sure they'll like know that I'm a mom and they'll just immediately gravitate to me. And they did. So she said that like she kept feeling like that a little hand would like grab her hand as they were going through the house and whatnot. It felt like kids were, like holding on to her and stuff. And I'm like, and that doesn't necessarily mean that, those ghosts wanted to follow her home, but they could sense like, oh, she's a mom. She's a motherly figure. Like, I want to hang out with her. I want to like be around her,
For sure.
So definitely, I don't think it's a true sign of attachment, but
surprisingly, when a spirit attaches to you, oftentimes they try to stay low profile. You'd be surprised how often people walk away with ghosts attached to them. And specifically low profile, so you don't shun them or do any protections or attempts at shuffling them off, because the attachment is their way of experiencing being alive again, experiencing a human condition of life. So whenever I go ghost hunting, I never go straight home. Don't ever go straight home from a ghost hunt or a ghost experience, because the chances are that a spirit had attached to you and will follow you home. And oftentimes when you get to your house, they actually unattach from you and take up the environment. And now you have, a new ghost in your house. So if you stop somewhere along the way, even briefly, the spirit's using a pretty tenuous bond to you. If it's not a relative, if it's not somebody who has, some personal connection to you and they've attached themselves to you, it's a tenuous bond. They're still kind of anchored to another place. And so they're looking to establish a relationship. And so, by not going straight home, you can sometimes, they will sometimes let go and either be drawn back to where they are, or, they're in that, haunted 7-Eleven that you went and got, Slurpee in.
Yeah, or the haunted taco stash in
exactly.
Fuller, but because that's where we went to eat after we filmed
the Meldrum,
the Meldrum secret episode, if you will.
All right. I want, for the last question, it's actually my question to y'all. Since we have dedicated this 50th episode to our youngest Parajunkie, Jameson, I wanted to ask Madison and Chris, each of you, what is your favorite ghost story about a kid? Favorite ghost story about a kid, and buku points if you haven't told it already.
Oh gosh.
On the.
Okay, hold on.
What do you think? What do you think, Chris?
That is a bit of a spot. children ghosts are by and far some of the most intense ghosts. They have a lot more activity and a lot more ability because, and we discussed this before, that children, they still have a full imagination intact.
Okay.
They have not been told to curb it. They've not been told to shelve it. And so when you have access to that creative power, and Jameson, if you're out there, never let go of dreaming and imagination, because that is a source of power that is unstoppable. The entire world is full of people who have given up their imagination for something real, quote unquote real. So know that power is incredible. And so my personal experience with a ghost child is Benjamin from the Savannah Theater.
Oh, yeah.
And Benjamin, I had a long-standing relationship with Benjamin. And when I first was told about Benjamin, we didn't have a name. We didn't know anything about. We just knew there was a child in the theater.
Oh.
And there was a lot of theories as to why the child was in the theater. And most of the theories came from the 1827 fire, which killed an actress. They believed that the child was the actress's child and died in the fire as well. So that was the story that everybody told. But over time, we just learned that wasn't true. A child did not die in that fire. And as we researched more and more, we actually learned that a child did die in a fire in the 50s when a fire broke out, or late 40s, early 50s. When a fire broke out, he actually was trampled to death on the fire escape on the balcony, getting out of the balcony. Oh, wow. And his name was Benjamin. And it was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But Benjamin was a practical joker. He was he loved to pull on your hair, tug on your shirt. And my first and most intense interaction with Benjamin was, and we used to actually see him. Like if you were on stage, you could see up into the balcony things moving, and every now and then you're just like, I think there's somebody in the balcony, and any veteran would be like, no, don't worry about it. No, don't worry about it. And we used to think that homeless people would come in, while we're rehearsing, and go sneak up into the balcony and spend the night or something. But we would learn, no, the place is haunted, of course. But I was a spotlight operator for a show, Anything Goes. So I'm following the actress on the stage with Anything Goes with a spotlight. And show's going fine. And then there comes a point, and I'm following the actress, and then my spotlight was jammed. I couldn't move it any further, and I couldn't figure it out. So for the rest of the show, I'm doing my best to keep the light on her, but every time she went too far stage right, she was just in the shadows, and there was a spotlight. Oh, wow. I was like, oh no. Oh, no. And so I looked down, and the cord was tied in a bow around the foot of one of the chairs. What? And I was like, how did that happen? And I untied it. I'm like, okay, I see. All right.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that was one of those.
That's a great story.
There was no other explanation for how that happened, because I was the only person up there. And yeah,
Chris always brings the heat, man. Yeah, that's a great. Maybe Chris brings the heat.
Yeah,
that's a great secret. We have a secret Parajunkie store, and that would be a great Parajunkie exclusive shirt.
Absolutely.
I think. Chris brings the heat.
So my favorite story for Savannah's children ghosts, I think, is one that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's the Willing children in the Willing house.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a really interesting story, and I think because of its position where it is, a lot of tours don't go over there because, it's kind of in that route. It's literally diagonal from the Hampton Lillibridge house, but it's this little cottage, and it was originally owned by a man who worked in the shipping industry, and he was a big, wealthy guy, whatever. That history doesn't really matter, but the point being is that there was a time period in Savannah where African-American children were not allowed to go to school. It was, during that era where it was illegal for African-American people to go to the park, go to church, go to have any kind of gathering. And so there was a white woman who was a teacher in Savannah who decided that she was going to teach these kids after, like when it got dark. And so she would sneak the kids into her attic, and she would teach them math, teach them reading, things like that. But she always rewarded them with candy. And so nowadays, basically you can still hear the children. You can still like see the kids. Every time I go past the house to the Hampton Lillibridge house, I always see them watching out through the window because they know that I'm going by. And I used to talk about their story when we had a different tour. That tour is no longer in existence, but I used to tell that story. And so they kind of got used to me coming by. And so they're like, oh, she's coming by. But the most interesting thing is that the people who live in the house always say that you can't leave candy out because the candy will disappear, or you'll find wrappers of candy on the floor and things like that. And I just think that's so sweet. And
no
also,
pun intended.
Right. But also just like an important story to talk about, because like Savannah does have a face of like, we don't talk about our ugly side. Yeah. And that was an ugly time period. And so it's sad that these kids had to learn in hiding. And the teacher ended up getting, she was given two options. She was either going to go to prison for teaching the kids, or she had to leave Chatham County. And so she left. And so those kids didn't have their teacher anymore, but they're still there. They're still, hanging around. But if you want to go see an underground kind of like, haunted location, I think that's a good one to go see. Yep. And the children are they're just happy. They're just there. And
it's right across. It's like diagonal.
It's literally diagonal.
And diagonal from the demon house.
That really speaks
just Savannah things.
Volumes to the idea that some spirits are not about the tragic death. These children more than likely did not die children. Mm-hmm. They lived their whole lives, but one of the high points of their lives, one of the emotional, peaks of their lives was being a child, being cared for, and being given candy and things like that. And therefore, when they passed, the spirit part of them, overlooking whatever triumphs, joys, or pains they had the rest of their lives, focused back to being a child in that place. When a person dies, their options of haunting come from high emotional output, from, who were they in their life and what part of them resonates greatest or resonates at all. So, there you have that instance where, it's not a story about dead children. It's a story about spirits that are children that lived at one point and had this emotional place, because they're also not scary. They're not forceful. They're not frightening. They're not trying to, possess you, or, we do tell a lot of scary stories, but the truth of the matter is, again, and I try to always come back to the fact that the vast majority of stories, the vast majority of experiences I've had in my life were actually about positive spirits and positive ghosts and positive things. I love being one of the biggest stories that really are through line for all ghost stories is somebody trying to express their love to their family members, trying to express love for an event, a place, things of that nature. So yeah, if you want to know what are the best ghost stories, they are about the triumph of spirits, these little moments that get recalled and played through and through and through. However, when people ask you for a really good ghost story, you're usually going straight for that, and then the demon came out of the closet and ate his face. I don't have a face-eating demon story, I'm sorry, but
oh,
I know.
That's what JT wants.
Not
JT everything's wants. A demon, Linda. That's going to become one. That was a comment that we got on one of our videos. And I don't know who this person was. I don't even know if they follow us, but like they stumbled across our video and saw a bunch of people saying like, that's a demon. And that is my favorite reaction to demon Linda.
All right, it'll go on a shirt.
Yes, right.
Okay, you convinced me.
But yeah.
All right. To end the episode, I would love to hear basically, what do you think the most important recap is from this season. What's the most important point? What do you want to leave the listeners with from season 1? I mean, we're coming right back for season 2, literally, like same schedule. But but what do you want to leave them with from season 1? They've, it's the people who have listened to every single episode. We really, really appreciate you. We love you, and we work real hard, and so it's really nice to have those people watch. I see the views go up every morning when a episode's dropped, and I'm like, oh man, it's great. And so what do you think out of all of the out of everything we've talked about, the multitude of things we talked about, what's most important? Or what do you want them to tell you? It doesn't have to be the most important, but
sure.
now
I would say just from those who didn't get to listen to my episode about the about seeing spirits, because it was a Parajunkie exclusive.
Yep.
Unless you want to become a Parajunkie, but I would definitely say don't always assume that ghosts are going to be the oogity boogity type, jumping out of the closet and eating your face. Sometimes they are simply just residual entities of sorts that are from someone's life. And you didn't have to die in the Victorian era to become a ghost, I promise. Like, you can die at any time and become a ghost if you really want to. And so, like, when you go to a haunted location, don't forget that, like, there were people who passed away there, and they might still be there too. So, acknowledge those ghosts as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say stay open. Be open. When people want to share these experiences with you, it is not your responsibility to tear them down, to fact check, to deny them, or to call them out. It's a risk. It's a huge risk to share something that is, by all accounts, unreal. By all accounts, the vast majority of society deems it as taboo or a subject that you shouldn't discuss or even acknowledge. So if somebody is trusting you with their story, don't meet them with resistance. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to, support it. But at the same time, you don't have to treat them with such disrespect as to suggest that they're lying from the outstart. Because I'm not even saying that they are telling the truth. I'm saying that they are telling you something.
Sure.
The experience or whatever is a communication of some type, and they are being vulnerable. And to take that vulnerability and use it as a reason to hurt them is just deplorable. It should not happen. If someone trusts you with a story, just listen to it. You can dismiss it internally, and you can dismiss it. You can even state that you don't believe them, but you do not have to be villainous about it.
You have to be a jerk.
Also,
jerk.
yeah. And it's safe to assume that no one knows everything. No matter how much of an authority a person is, or how much of an authority you think you are, you don't know everything. I am far more in the world of not knowing. I don't know so much. So there's so many of the things I don't know. Yeah. And because of that, I want to at the very least give people the benefit of the doubt that their experience and their base of knowledge is independent of me. It has nothing to do with me. What somebody else knows, they learned on their own. And if they want to share it, I'm here to listen.
Absolutely. All right. I was going to mention just one last thing for all the people, for all the fans that we have. If you want to send us suggestions of things that you want to see, go for it. Like, we're going to try the React thing for next season a little bit. But if you have any ideas and you're like, oh man, I'd love to see this, shoot it over, because we're always taking suggestions. But yeah, Maddie, you want to end it out?
Yep. Well, thank you guys so much for always watching and being very supportive of us. if you do not follow us on social media, you definitely should. We just recently changed our TikTok account name to Haunted City Podcast, I believe is what we called it. Yep, Haunted City Podcast. So you can follow us there on TikTok. You can follow us on Most Haunted City on Earth on Instagram. All those good things. If you want to become a Parajunkie, you can find us on Patreon and listen to those really cool episodes. And we have merch for hauntedcitypodcast.com. So there you go. Well, with that, thank you guys again. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And stay spooky, y'all. See you in season 2.